Quite the busy news day today. A lot happening at the State House. And beyond. Good evening. Welcome into my State of Mind. I am Dan York. A parent from Tiverton. Who's that? A parent from Tiverton is my guest today. Has nothing to do with the happenings at the State House necessarily. But I like when parents are advocates for their kids. I like when they mix it up with the local government. And it's a story that I'm sure is told in many communities around here when it comes to pre-K challenges, pre-kindergarten. There's a story behind the story, and Mike DeCotis, my guest, will tell you about that a little bit later on in the broadcast. In the meantime, welcome in to my State of Mind. Thanks for joining me. Let's go to the rundown because there's a lot to do to discuss on the rundown. In fact, I only put a few things up there today. The governor has created one. State, are you a Kings fan? It's a state of confusion. I really should have just played the music, sorry. You a Kings fan, Kev? No? Yeah. Yes? No? Yeah. Oh, sorry to hammer that. Mayors versus Georgia. That's what Kevin told me. This is actually the General Assembly. Just trying to be concise. And the gotchas are no way to do business. Your state of mind is important to us, or to us as well. I make a quick move there, don't I? Let's do this. So, because this requires a little bit of conversation. So the state of confusion, whoa, is all the governor's doing. Here is what the governor said last week, in case you missed it, in case you've been under a rock, about her new ideas for tolling trucks and the kinds of trucks she wants to toll.
We're proposing assessing a user fee on large commercial trucks. We are not including passenger vehicles, motorcycles, SUVs, pickup trucks, or small commercial vehicles. It's commercial vehicles, 18-wheelers and above.
So it's all part of this RoadWorks program, which is a $700 million revenue bond, meaning we're going to borrow money, but we'll have revenue to pay it off, financial instrument, in addition to the billions of dollars that we've got over 10 years earmarked through the budget to maintain roads. And it's all about tolling bridges because we can't toll interstate highways. And because we don't have enough bridges, they're going to make them up. 17 to 20 bridges. You couldn't name 3 bridges other than the big bridges that you know. Never mind bridges on 295, 95, and 195. The highway is about as far as you would get. So the whole thing has been kind of wacky anyway, and we've done a lot of conversation about this, and I'm already getting a headache talking to you about it. So today, the Truckers Association had their formal press conference. We've already had members of the Trucking Association here last week to spout about how ridiculous this is. Here's what the truckers said.
Trucks didn't cause the situation that we're in today, and we shouldn't be expected to fix it alone. We're willing to pay our fair share, but this is anything but fair.
That's Pat Thomas from the American Trucking Association. Okay, so they say their thing. Now, meanwhile, the truckers have been trying to explain to the governor's office that this thing that they've been mixed up on, meaning the kinds of trucks. Well, let me show you this graphic. This is kind of interesting. All right. I hope you got a 60-inch screen TV here, because up on the top are the motorcycles. That's class 1, all the way down to the bottom right, which is the bottom left is class 13. So there's 13 different kinds of federally classified vehicles. What the governor was saying last week is that it's all going to start with kind of like number 9, sort of, kind of, maybe 8, maybe 9. Of course, she wasn't specific. But the DOT and her staff put this classification graph out, citing that trucks from 6, meaning the red one in the upper middle, up through 13 would be those that would be tolled. And I've chronicled this. We can come back now, okay, for a second. We'll come back to this graphic. So we've chronicled this confusion. The governor's thinking 18-wheelers and more, but the plan and her finance for this plan, reportedly, was based on the class 6, 7, and up. And the class 6 and 7 are the delivery trucks that run around all over around the place, and everyone's fit to be tied and going nuts. So what happened today? Even after the governor was completely confused herself and her staff was not on the same page all the way through last week, even on the taping of the Newsmaker show this past weekend, even with nothing being done yesterday, today, Ted Nesi, WPRI.com's stalwart reporter, executive suite host, and all-around terrific journalist, broke a little story. And here's the headline on the website. Raimondo to scale back tolling for some trucks. Ted learned, and then the rest of the media followed, that the governor said, you know what, we're not going to include trucks classified at 6 and 7. Well, she herself never said there would be class 6 or 7. She was talking about 18-wheelers, which I think are class 8, 9, or above. But her staff and the financial plan had classes 6 and 7 in it. So she has eliminated class 6 and 7. Okay. There are hearings tonight at the General Assembly on the bill that the governor's people are putting in on this whole truck tolling idea, which I believe is financially pro forma for, meaning the business plan is for trucks 6, 7, and above, thousands of them that would be paying the tolls. So what are they putting into the hopper? No idea. Let's go back to the graphic. Without that red truck in the middle, is that orange or red? Well, that's orange, because I'm colorblind. Without, Kev says red, I bet you Jess will tell me orange, because my wife tells me men can't see color, and I know I can't either. Still red. All right, 6 or 7. Without those trucks, it changes the entire formula. Do you follow me? While those truck owners and the companies that run trucks like that probably feel pretty good that, oh, we just escaped the mess, how is she going to pay for a $700 million plan? What the governor should be doing right now is stopping the confusion, regroup, apologize for last week's press conference, and once again explain what she wants to do to fix the roads and bridges from Jump Street, complete with the amount of trucks that they project to actually pay a toll. How many times are they going to pay tolls? In what direction through the state will they pay tolls? What are they going to do about this urgency they say they have for local trucking companies in Rhode Island? And what are the laws that the feds require allowing for local exemptions? Because my homework shows that there aren't any. Get your act together and restate your plan, rather than now piecemealing news pieces and changing the plan at the General Assembly hearings without anybody being able to follow what the heck you're doing. This is the worst layout you could expect from a Raimondo administration that I thought had a lot going on. A bad week continuing for this governor, and she better figure her way out of it. You know what? Sometimes humility is a real key asset. Something like, hey, you know what? My heart and head are in the right place, but we screwed this thing up 8 ways to Sunday. Can we start again? Most people would say, sure, start again. All right, next item. One of the good things the governor's done, by the way, is empowering the lieutenant governor to really kind of cultivate this mezzanine level of government. There was a press conference today at the General Assembly, at the State House, that I thought was kind of cool. Here's the headline. Alorza, the mayor of Providence, McKee, the lieutenant governor, joined forces on fire platoon costs. And yes, that's exactly what they've done. This is all about House Bill 5473 and Senate Bill 0533 that very simply include platoons, meaning shifts, into collective bargaining between a town and a fire department. Right now, towns have management rights to be able to say, you know what? We're going to move from 4 shifts to 3 shifts, which they did in North Kingstown and saved a couple $1 million, which the Providence mayor wants to do. We'll catch up on that in a second. Here's a little bit of ditty from the Eyewitness News as Lieutenant Governor McKee, talks about the General Assembly not working in the people's best interest.
We must start making decisions that are in the best interest of all residents of the state of Rhode Island. Make no mistake, what is playing out right now is a tug-of-war between creating healthy, solvent communities and clinging to the status quo.
What they said made no sense at all. So what they're saying is the bill that's before them stops them from negotiating this. Absolutely doesn't do that. All you have to do is read the bill. That's not what it does. You could read the tones behind this. This is all about cutting firefighters from the state, reducing us to 3 platoons, and not paying us.
No, it's not about not paying. That's Paul Valletta, Cranston Firefighters Union. It's not about not paying. It's about having the right to change the way you do business to save the taxpayers money. you got to get paid for the work that you do. It is about overtime, however. Pay attention to this, do some reading on it, and we're going to cover it at length on Thursday and Friday with firefighter union members in here and with some of the mayors and the lieutenant governor. All right, pay attention. So on this story, the bellwether of this story has been this little ditty under the gotcha, not concept that I threw here. This is just bad news. The headline, Providence firefighter union leaders are at each other here because they had a meeting a little while back, the mayor and a firefighter group dining at a firefighter headquarters somewhere, and they taped them surreptitiously, meaning secretly, which is legal but nasty. And then they leaked it to Eyewitness News, and it was, you know, as far as I'm concerned, just not a very good way of doing business. Here's what the mayor was saying on tape.
Understanding that it saves money, but is the personnel side of it considered, like the...
Oh yeah, for sure. No, it has to be done in a way that doesn't compromise safety, and as it currently stands, in terms of the change to the work schedules,
yes,
that all has to be collectively bargained. Yeah, so that can't be unilaterally imposed. So I know that it was pretty contentious in North Kingstown.
You know what? The mayor was being truthful about what he's trying to accomplish with this June 30th goal to change from 4 to 3 platoons. So I asked him, you know, because the firefighters are accusing him of lying, did he say anything differently in that private meeting that he's been saying publicly?
In that story that Channel 12 ran last night, what do you think you said to them that was different than what you're saying right now?
There's nothing different. What I told them privately is what I'm saying right now publicly, what I've continued to say publicly, and what we're actually doing. We're actually at the negotiation table right now. So I remain committed to making sure that we sit down and collectively bargain a resolution to this. That's what we're doing. That's what I've said publicly. That's what I said privately. And that's what we're going to continue doing.
Meanwhile, Paul Dowdy, the firefighter union president, who's going to join us on Thursday, has been saying, well, he just wants us to work without any pay, which is impossible. There's a lot of nuances to this platoon thing, but know this, it's probably going to save the people money on overtime, but you got to pay firefighters for the hours that they work. Stay tuned to it. It's interesting, but the General Assembly is creating an environment where it has to be part of the chits and collective bargaining without the management having the right to change the way they do business. And that's not good. All right. Is it confusing to you? You got to do some reading on it, and we'll do some more shows on it over the course of the week. When we come back, a local parent advocating for pre-K, but first, let me check my state of mind. I got people yelling at me. I get it. I can recover. Call me, 228-1886, State of Mind at MyRITV.com. We got to do State of Mind before I break, for God's sake. Let me see what the Facebook page says. Dan, the damage to the bridges is primarily caused by the overweight bulk haulers and not the interstate commercial traffic, which is to conform to the 80,000-pound max. That's a lot of information. I've never become more trucking savvy than I have over the last week. At least thank the governor for that. Yeah, I get that. I don't know what to do about it, but I get that. This tolling idea doesn't feel right. We'll come back with our guest. Stay with us. So I got an email the other day from Justin Katz, who is, a conservative thinker and advocate for a lot of stuff conservative, also works in Tiverton as a citizen on budgets and stuff, and says you got to listen to this guy's activism on behalf of kids in Tiverton. And I said sure, and here was the headline that we picked on TivertonFatCheck.org. Is that what Justin writes? Does he write that? Is that what he does?
That's correct.
The school committee killed full day K, but didn't have to. Mike DeCotis works in the private sector. Right? You're a salesman.
That's how we say it.
Well, welcome to the broadcast. Nice to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So lay out the problem, and then in our second segment, we'll lay out some solutions. What's happened? You've learned a lot about local government advocating for kindergarten, correct?
Sure.
What
Correct.
happened?
So recently, we had a town budget that the town, the budget planning committee, and the superintendent were working on, and part of the cry from the townspeople was that they wanted to have an all-day kindergarten program. They've been working on this for months, and what happened was the Tiverton Taxpayer Association, which is Justin's group, they were able to petition with some signatures and to enter a proposed budget. The town wanted 2.9% of a tax increase to help pay for things like all-day K. And Justin's group did a line-by-line sort of comparison and came out with a different budget, which only asked the public to vote for a 0.9% tax increase. So there was a lot of noise and awareness around this, and then on May 16th, we had a referendum, and Justin's group, the 0.9% budget, passed. So there was some money that was cut that the school committee and the town planning committee was planning on having. So when things like this happen, kids, especially our kindergartners that are in half-day school, they now don't get to go to school full-time. And when you ask the school committee, or you look at the superintendent, if you go to the school committee meeting or watch it on YouTube or something, they're going to say, we just can't do it. We just don't have the money. And if this didn't happen, if the voters didn't vote this way, we could still do it. However, there are other things that happen, like our bus contract went up 17%. So there's some unexpected expenses. But if putting these kids in school all day is a priority, and it should be, and everyone's saying that, including the superintendent and the school committee, then why can't we find the little bit of money it takes to get that to happen? So that's where we're at right now.
Right, and you're finding that the kids feel like they're behind, parents are worried that kids aren't on spec in
Sure.
grades 1 and 2?
Sure. So 43 states, including Washington, D.C., have this Common Core curriculum, which they started a few years ago. And it's basically just to teach the same way all across the country. So the long and short of it is, if a kid lives in Rhode Island and moves to California and they're one of the states that has the Common Core curriculum, the kids can kind of pick up where they left off. It's a different form of education. And kindergarten is not a glorified daycare anymore. Those kids at kindergarten are expected to learn. It was in the past, but it's different now. So when our kids are one of, I think, 6 communities in Rhode Island now that are still half-day K, I'm talking to parents saying, my child is in kindergarten this year, or my child's in 1st grade, and they're behind, and they're struggling. And I think if they were at a full-time program here in Tiverton, this wouldn't happen. And that's what we're doing. We're sending our kids to school for just 3 hours a day.
All right, I'm going to pause here. When we come back, Mike will tell you exactly how much it costs versus the entire budget. And we'll talk about what he's learned jumping into the fray of local decisions called politics. Stay with us. All right, so we're talking to Mike DeCotis. He's just an everyday guy, you know, working for a living, right? Parent.
That's it.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 children.
In the public school system in Tiverton.
Correct.
Yeah, by the way, if you've got stories about your own challenges in your own community, you know, that's what State of Mind is for. That's what your State of Mind is for. Call us, let us know. I'm interested. We don't always have to have the big time hitters in politics on this in the conversation. I'm about what you're dealing with out there. Long story short, you just established that the full-day kindergarten got squashed by the school committee in Tiverton based on a referendum vote that lowered the revenue take, taxation-wise.
Correct.
The total amount of money necessary to run a full-day kindergarten in Tiverton is?
After state aid, about $126,000 next year.
Against a school budget which is?
$29.5 million.
What have you learned, my friend, about this?
Well, so I understand that there's a reserve in a school committee. They have money put aside for capital improvements. I know we have, I think our high school needs a new roof, and then there's a boiler that's dead in our middle school. So we understand that there's money that needs to fix things, and there's teacher contracts, and there's school lunch, which we're behind, and increased bus money in a contract. But what happens is, when you're looking at such a big amount, $29.5 million, and with Governor Raimondo having a bill that they're speculating in the next couple of weeks when they pass up at the General Assembly, mandatory all-day K starting in 2016 into 17. It's going to be mandatory. So there will be funding available from the state that will go back to the towns that don't currently have all-day K. So in my view, I feel like Tiverton says, well, we have some issues now, so we'll just kind of under the rug put all-day K for this year because we're going to be able to get some money from the state next year when it's mandatory. So the easy way for them to save $126,000 is to not have all-day K this year. But the problem is they say it's a priority and they want it. Well, if you want it, I say as a parent, prove it. Let's figure out how to do it.
All right. So have you gone through the exercise of peeling through the line items in the budget and finding $126,000?
Well, not necessarily yet. But I think that Justin, who is more of the numbers guy, he's someone that's done that before and possibly could be doing that again. And I'm hoping as just a taxpayer and a parent that he comes to the next school committee meeting and maybe he could find some room in there. I think the worst case scenario we can do is dip into the town reserve and have that $126,000 come out. There's also a $40,000 startup grant from RISE, from the state, and it doesn't look like we want to use that either. So we're throwing back about $100,000 and not using it that could be used for our kids to start off on the right foot.
But have you taken a look at the big picture? I haven't seen Tiverton's budget, sure, but I can assure you, first of all, you know that personnel costs are well over 80% of a school budget. Mm-hmm. Personnel costs. Right. And I'm sure the all-day kindergarten budget is heavily reliant on personnel.
Sure.
Benefits, pensions, runaway, unfunded liabilities, and all that are what is suffocating the demands of the taxpayer. You get that, right?
I do, unfortunately.
So that's where the conversation has to be. You are rightly focused on this thing you want, and I'm proud of you as a citizen just for advocating for what you want. But the learning lesson is going to be the broad picture of what puts the pressure on a school committee to choke like they've done. Mm-hmm. And that's where the advocacy has to be, not just on the single issue, which is as important because the issue ends up being a victim of the bigger picture problem.
Correct. Correct.
Right?
I agree.
All right, so what's the moral of the story? In the meantime, I'm trying to talk to you from 36,000 feet. You've got a problem here, you got a challenge, you got a meeting coming up. You want people in Tiverton to rise up and speak out on this, or go ahead, advocate for a minute. What do you want to have done?
Well, that would be great. So on June 9th, which is next Tuesday, there is a school committee meeting at 7 p.m. at the Tiverton High School in the library. I've talked to the school committee members and the superintendent, and they're all very good people, and I think they do want all-day K. I think the difference is they need to hear it from the people. So if someone is a parent of a child entering kindergarten, or entering kindergarten not maybe this year, the year after, or maybe those parents that have said to me privately, my kid's struggling, if they came and they were able to advocate and speak to these people, maybe, just maybe, they'll be open to changing their mind.
A lot of parents are afraid, aren't they?
They are. And I've asked the school committee, how many people have called you, or I've called my local senators, my representatives, how many parents have called you on this issue? And they say, 1, 2. Shocking to me that 120 incoming kids, only 1 or 2 people.
Here's the good news. When 12 do, they think they've got a landslide problem.
That's correct.
You know, so you get a couple of dozen folks together,
sure,
they think that, you know what's hit the fan all over Kingdom Come.
Well, I'm hoping that's what happens next Tuesday.
All right, next Tuesday. Good luck. Keep us posted on this, will you?
Thank you, Dan.
All right.
Appreciate it.
We'll come right back. One more thing. You got to remember, sometimes the squeaky wheel does get the grease, so you folks in Tiverton show up and make your advocacy. We'll follow up on that story next week. You know, it was really disappointing today. I was waiting for the big announcement, but he didn't make it. He is waiting till tomorrow. That guy. He is running for president. We just have to wait another day. Can't wait. We'll comment then. Tomorrow night, Allie Curtis, the new Miss Rhode Island, will be my guest. And we'll see you on the radio, weekdays noon to 3 on WPRO, 630 on the AM dial, 99.7 on the FM dial. Have a great night.